just in general in the last few years, we've become less attached to our games and the game design process, and I have no problem with just saying, no, this isn't working, and instead of trying to fix it, because I feel like trying to fix a game sometimes ruins it, it's best to toss it, start from scratch, see how we can like keep the same setting or the things that we love and come up with a new solution.
It was terrific having these sisters back on the show. I loved their Flabbergasted game and enjoyed learning how these two women came out of nowhere to create this award-winning RPG. Their mystery sheet idea for Mystified is another exciting approach to running mysteries in an RPG. Origin story of the concept might surprise you. And they have a fascinating journey deciding what the new archetypes would be for the book. Now, if you missed the game Flabbergasted when we featured them last year, this is going to be your chance. Their backer kit is open right now for Mystified and Flabbergasted. Hide your wallet. Okay, sit back, relax, and enjoy my time with Fleur and Chelsea.
This is Quentin Smith, and when I'm not frowning over a board game manual, you'll find me listening to Tabletop Talk.
Howdy friends, Craig here. My guests today are Fleur and Chelsea Sciortino. We last talked with them in episode 143 about their game Flabbergasted. Now, since then, I received my hardback copy, and not only is the game a delight, but the book is gorgeous. Today, we're talking about the first companion book for Flabbergasted called Mystified, and you're going to find out in a second why I'm super excited about this game. Now, Fleur is a freelance illustrator and designer. She creates and works on books, board games, video games, film, and animation storyboards, and commercial design agency work. She's an avid gamer and sci-fi fanatic. And Chelsea is an architect passionate about all games, whether it be video games, board games, TTRPGs, and most recently, LARPs. She turned her passion for storytelling and writing into the running of the Wanderer's Tome. Fleur and Chelsea, welcome back to the third floor.
Thank you so much for having us back. We had such a good time.
Lovely to be back. Yeah, thank you.
This has ended up being kind of a fun reunion. I was laughing because, usually I spend like 5 minutes with guests before I start recording. I think we've been talking for like 30 minutes, just catching up with each other. So, and one of the things for those of you listening is they had to listen to me just go on and on about Flabbergasted, both as a game design, and then as a book. And if you've been following me on socials, you've heard me talk about it. You've seen me post pictures of it when I got it. Super, super clever. And one of the things that I was talking to Fleur and Chelsea about is that, I need to run this game and I need to get it up on the channel for an actual play. And it's been on my list. It just hasn't reached the top yet. And then this Mystified comes out. And I'm like, oh, geez, this is my jam. Like, this is a really great angle for this to push it over the edge. But before we get into all of that, because I want to spend a whole segment talking about Mystified, you guys started a crowdfunding campaign. It funded quite well, and then you fulfilled it. And I want to talk a little bit about what that was like. So maybe we'll start with you, Chelsea. You went into it, and I talked to you before it launched and everything. And what for you was the biggest delight in that whole process? I'm sure there's a lot of things that were not delightful about the process. But looking back on it, it's done. What delighted you the most about going from beginning, middle to end on that?
I mean, obviously funding was a huge delight and a huge surprise. I still think to this day, whenever we fund, we're surprised. But the first one, especially, we had a very, very small following before that. And we were both doing other things. We had other careers. So we were just doing this part-time, and for it to have done as well as it did was a huge shock, but also a huge relief, because we both quit our jobs and decided very stupidly that at the time it felt very stupidly that we were going to do this full time, much to our parents' disapproval.
It's the Viking burn the boat, right? Once you land.
So I had that conversation. I'm like, hey, mom and dad, I know I'm an architect and I spent 6 years studying this, but I'm going to go make games now. Unbelievable. So that was the peak, obviously. And since then, just in general, anytime I see someone playing our game, doing actual play, it's such a delight. I can't believe I still can't believe people are playing it and enjoying it. You know, and getting it. When I see actually playing, people are getting it and laughing, and it's amazing.
What was the biggest surprise? So what happened during that process that you definitely did not anticipate?
Well, before we went on crowdfunding, I'd say the entire process past game design was completely new to me and to Fleur. And I think that's the part that people don't really know how to actually market a game, get a game to market, fulfill it. So it was all a huge learning curve. Like working with the fulfillment companies, because we cannot ship from Malta because we're a tiny island in the middle of nowhere and it's very expensive. So we had to use fulfillment centers. What is the biggest surprise? I don't know, the entire thing. Marketing was new. Marketing was new and something that neither of us knew how to do properly. So I when we were doing Flabbergasted, I learned marketing. I did a diploma and I tried to figure out how to do it. Just in general, we like to wear every single hat within the business. So whatever we don't know, we'll learn.
That's one less person to pay, right?
Yeah.
Now, Fleur, for you, I was surprised at how well it funded. Not because I had any doubt about you, the two of you, or the product, but to Chelsea's point, you guys were not a big name, right? You did not have a huge following going into the crowdfunding. When you look back, do you have a sense of what happened? Why it ended up being such a success?
I really think it's just the niche subject matter. It's one of those games where if it appeals to you, then you really like. People who love this genre are really ardent fans of this genre, right? Like It's not like, oh, another fantasy campaign where, a lot of people. I mean, I'm a big fantasy fan as well, but I don't lose every time I see a new fantasy campaign because there's so many of them and so many interpretations. But when it's something that's so niche and I feel like it really appeals to that interest of yours, you really are drawn to it instantly. And I feel that's what definitely happened with Flabbergasted. Like there are some people who are like, I thought it was like, not many people are going to get this Jeeves and Wooster reference, but there are so many who knew even more than we did. And they're like, oh my God, finally someone who made this game. So I think that was a big reason. It allows for a dedicated, not huge, but a dedicated fan base.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there isn't. I mean, I felt like the little slot you found from a genre standpoint and from a gameplay standpoint, it touched a lot of things. So I've seen other games like be tangential and close to what you got, but nobody's found that one little lane that you guys got into. Mm-hmm. And there's so many great touchstones to the game that really had not been utilized yet. So you guys are about to do another crowdfunding. So while we're talking the game, and this is one of those rare times where I'm talking to them while it's funding. So this is going to get turned around and editing very quickly. But what did you, either of you or both of you, do in the Flabbergasted process that you're definitely not going to do again? You're not doing this time.
I have to think about this. I mean, I'll start from... In general, we learned a lot, obviously, from Flabbergasted. I feel like with, for sure, with Mystified, we're definitely spending our money better.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, for example, marketing, during Flabbergasted, it was our first time. We didn't have a following. We just kind of threw money a bunch of places and would see what would stick. With Mystified, we have quite a lot of returning customers, which is great. And two, we know what marketing works. And I think this is going to keep improving with every campaign.
But then with regards to like the process of like writing the book, I actually think we had a pretty good grasp of things with Flabbergasted. Like we kind of like naturally knew what to do. I mean, I say naturally, we did do a lot of research but I don't think we changed that much from our processes. This isn't so much as it is like a change, like, oh, we didn't do it well in the first time round. But for example, in the first time round, we were very hesitant to get manufacturing from like China, because, you know, we were still very new. We didn't want to have this, like, any unexpected, like, shipping fees and delays. So we kept everything in Europe. But now that we have a bit more experience, we are doing that, getting a bit more confidence.
Yeah.
So that's something we're doing differently from Flabbergasted.
Yeah. So in fact, with Flabbergasted, our first campaign, we stuck to only paper products. So apart from the book, we had some posters, postcards, things like that. And with this one, we now have more confidence to do other products that people have asked for, like dice, a GM screen, metal coins, and these things obviously require more manufacturing. We can't do all of them in Europe, but we have the confidence now to do things like that.
So from a marketing perspective, was there, for Flabbergasted, was there a certain method or avenue of marketing that maybe also surprised you, right? So you put some money there, the way you were splashing money around because you didn't really know what was going to work, what wasn't going to work. And then you go back and look at the analytics of it later, right? We spent X amount here, and this is the amount of backers it got. Was there any marketing either that you paid or didn't pay for that ended up being a surprise?
I'll be honest, probably not as much. Like, the one that worked the best is the one that, like, everyone says is the best, which is pretty much just like Facebook and Instagram marketing, just running ads. That remains across the whole, like, anyone who's published, the most effective way. I mean, some surprising things were like certain news site publications. We during the Flabbergasted, we were featured on what's it called? The big one.
The big one.
Was it
Dicebreaker. Yes.
Yeah.
And they put up our article right before they went to probably Gen Con. And so they weren't posting articles over that weekend. So ours
it just sat there.
It just sat there on the top for like a good 3 days. And actually that generated like a good amount of new pledges through it, just because we got that front spot. That was unplanned, though. It was a coincidence, but that was a pretty surprising thing.
Now, did you interact with them at all for that, or was the article a surprise? Did you know it was going to come up?
We didn't know it was good. We did reach out. Obviously, we sent a press release to them. We sent a press release across like lots of different news sites, but we didn't know how much they were going to feature it.
Yeah, most of the articles were a surprise. I mean, they might email us later and say, "Hey, we wrote this for you," and show it to us. But they were, we had some big websites, and it was
actually half the time they don't even tell you that they wrote an article, and then I find out like weeks
someone
later.
links it to me.
Yeah.
Most of these things work like that.
It is. We're still a baby industry, and we're still super unprofessional, right?
This kept going even to, for example, when we got nominated for the Ennies. We didn't know until someone linked the article and said, "Hey, you're on this list many times. You should check it out," because we didn't know. It was.
So that was going to be my next question: is what was the reaction when you guys realized that you had been nominated?
Oh.
I think we both cried.
I bet.
Separately.
Yeah.
We both were out. It was a Friday night, and we both were out in the same city in Malta. So I found out first because a friend of mine linked it, like an hour after the nominations were out. I called Fleur, and then I went to the restaurant she was at in the same city to find her, and she came out, and we just
hugged
celebrated,
each other, cried, freaked out.
Like, this was your first damn game. It's mind blowing to me, and it must have been
insane.
overwhelming.
You know, like the feeling of imposter syndrome when we like published this game is really big, and like even then they're like we like, not to toot our own horn or whatever, but we got nominated for like best game and product of the year as well.
Unbelievable.
I mean, I still struggle from the imposter syndrome, but at that point I was like, oh, maybe we did actually make something good here.
Yeah, that's
The feeling never goes away.
like, wait, are we good? That was our conversation.
It doesn't matter how much empirical proof people can give you that what you're doing is good. If you're like me, you're going to be like, yeah, no. Everybody's going to figure out it's all garbage soon. This charade is going to continue, but not forever. That's so funny. Let's roll right into Mystified. I want to go before the crowdfunding of Flabbergasted. When you guys were thinking about Flabbergasted, we have I think we spent an hour talking about it last time, so we're not going to go into it. Did Mystified exist at all at that point? So have either of you think about adding this mystery aspect of Flabbergasted? Was that from the very beginning or no?
Not too much. Because of who me and Fleur are as people, before we even crowdfunded Flabbergasted, we were already thinking about expansions, like, oh, we could do this in the future, do that. But we weren't really thinking about them properly, developing anything. And I mean, speaking of the Ennies, it was kind of after the Ennies that we thought we kind of put our business hats on for once and said, people are taking notice. Right now we have a lot of traction. We should, if we're ever going to do an expansion, it should be soon. When people are playing, it shouldn't be in a few years from now. So that's when we started thinking about what people have requested, and see how we can tie it together in an expansion. We had an idea before, like we always knew we wanted to do, for example, murder mysteries with Flabbergasted, because from the get-go, people said, I mean, it's a natural fit, Agatha Christie type of mysteries of the 1920s.
I also always from the start kind of wanted to see how I can add like some elements of magic to the game, because we had all these spin-offs, like, oh, what if we do a spin-off where you're a magic society or something like that? I did want to touch upon like the biggest expansion idea that we had when we first had Flabbergasted, and I still kind of want to try and approach at some point, is to do a around the world in 80 days expansion.
That was one of our early ideas, so.
Because I don't think it exists as a TTRPG. But then again, there might be a reason. Because I have been trying to work on it, and it does seem like
maybe it's a terrible idea.
Like logistically, it's a bit complicated to figure out, but I want to try it at some point. But yes, we had like lots of bits of ideas. So we liked our murder mysteries. I liked some magic.
So this is the first but not the last expansion, it sounds like.
No, I mean, hopefully not. But probably not.
If there's enough demand, I mean, I'll keep doing expansions forever.
Oh boy! So guys, the Insider Insight series allows me to sit down with designers, developers, artists, writers, and creators and learn how they approach their work. I try to understand their process, inspiration, and methods for crafting their creation. We've got a little bit of a hint where Mystified came from, but you know me, I'm going to dig even deeper. So we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to talk about Mystified. Are you enjoying our long-form interviews with creatives on this podcast? Maybe you're craving deeper discussions about our guests or some of the RPG plays on our Twitch and YouTube channel. Well, I've got an opportunity for you. You see, Third Floor Wars now has a Patreon-only Discord server. You can join a vibrant community of like-minded enthusiasts diving deep into every episode of our RPG plays and podcast. Connect with fans, engage in spirited discussions, and unlock the behind-the-scenes insights. For just $1 a month, access a world of tabletop gaming goodness. Connect with passionate gamers who share your love for the Tabletop Podcast and everything produced on the Third Floor. As a Patreon supporter, you also enjoy ad-free episodes of this podcast. You can immerse yourselves in captivating stories and fascinating interviews without interruptions, taking your listening experience to a whole new level. By joining the Third Floor Wars Patreon community, you not only gain exclusive access to the Patreon-only Discord server, but you also support the growth of my podcast and channels. Your contributions enable me to continue creating high-quality content that entertains, educates, and upskills tabletop enthusiasts like yourself. maybe don't wait. Join the Third Floor Wars Patreon today and unlock a world of camaraderie, discussions, and knowledge. Visit patreon.com/Third Floor Wars or check the link in the show notes and come join our community. The Third Floor Wars Patreon-only Discord server awaits you. I and the other patrons can't wait to welcome you with open arms and a fistful of dice. I'm trying to figure out whether I knew about Mystified before you guys reached out to me. I don't think I did. I think when you guys first reached out to me is when I first realized what was happening. I was like, I got all excited. And I want to read the little blurb on it so everybody can understand why I'm so jazzed about this. So, Mystified. Prepare to be completely mystified by this expansion to the award-winning Flabbergasted. Mystified allows you to craft a mystery-driven campaign for Flabbergasted. The players will unravel mysteries with 3 new archetypes, 3 new locations, and 3 full-length campaigns, story hooks, and club sheets. So we had ideas for expansions. This was not one of them, but then it became the first expansion. So who can talk to me about when it reared its head and when it won out compared to all the other expansion ideas that you had?
Well, after the NAs, like I said, that's when we started thinking about what we were going to create. At that time, we were playtesting another game that we developed. It's not out yet. We're still in early stages. But in that game, we had a mystery sheet to help the GM create mysteries. But it wasn't working for that game. The mystery aspect, we scrapped it. And then after that, when we were thinking...
Why wasn't it working for that game, Kelsey? Can you give me a little bit of an idea of why it wasn't working and why you knew it needed to be taken out?
It wasn't working because this game didn't have enough... The setting didn't lend itself well to create stories with something as open as a mystery sheet. And I realized that game needs more of a pre-written campaign instead of leaving it as open as a mystery sheet. Whereas with Flabbergasted, the reason why I kind of recycled it-ish, obviously I changed a lot of things, but the reason why I recycled from Flabbergasted is Flabbergasted already works as a game. The setting lends itself to a lot of improv and kind of writes itself in a way. The mechanics, like sync cubes and things like that, really lends itself to creating these scenarios. And so having something like a mystery sheet to just create some structure to adding certain stories to it really worked. Whereas in this other game, it didn't work as much. The other game wasn't as developed. I think that's... I don't know what you think, Fleur, because we play tested it. What did you think about the mystery in the other game?
Yeah, so the way we're using the mystery sheet in Flabbergasted versus in our other game, which I don't know if we're supposed to keep it secret or not, because we're keeping... I am keeping
it secret.
Okay, because just in case it doesn't actually come out. Or
I could say the setting and what this other game was it stars monsters and it's like a Monster Academy game.
Oh, cool.
Right? So that's what it is. And I had this idea of making mysteries the forefront of that game, kind of like in things like, in most Academy type games, there's usually a mystery, an overarching mystery, and I thought this would create good structure. But it felt very forced when we were playtesting the mystery aspects.
I will say this, because originally we were thinking that your whole kind of like campaign will be structured around the mystery. But what we're doing differently with the mystery sheet and Flabbergasted is it's just more of a complement to your main campaign. You're not trying to make like a months-long mystery with this new mystery sheet. You can still have your normal Flabbergasted game, but then be like, okay, let's have a mystery, couple of deviation over a few episodes.
Yeah.
And it worked a lot better because because plotting a mystery is actually very difficult.
Well, Fleur, and I feel like we've kind of skipped over something here. So I think I have a general idea of what you mean by mystery sheet, but I don't think I have a fully formed idea. So can you give me an idea? Let's start with when it first came over to Flabbergasted. So we take it out of the Monster Academy game. It's brought into Flabbergasted because we think it might work there. What is a mystery sheet at that point? Which I'm sure is not what I read ended up. But at that point, what did you mean by mystery sheet?
So when we brought it to Flabbergasted, the reason why I'll answer your question in a roundabout way. So
okay, I'm here.
Bear with me. Bear with me. When we brought it to Flabbergasted, at this point, the reason why I brought it over is that we had 3 kind of themes that people have requested, and we felt that something clicked where we thought the commonality of these 3 themes is a mystery, and that's why we brought it over. Because I really want an expansion that had a common theme and added something new aside from new characters and just new stories and new campaigns. And that's when we decided to bring the mystery sheet over. And what a mystery sheet is, in the case of Flabbergasted, is just some structure for the GM to create a story and keep track of certain things like clues that the characters can find, the leads that will lead them to those clues, and the associated challenge to get that clue, because every clue needs a challenge to get it. It can't just be super simple. And a challenge will usually require like a dice roll, a character trait roll, or a scene cue, or something like that. And it worked for Flabbergasted because Flabbergasted is really all about improv and having a mystery sheet like the one that we created, where it's all about creating some structure throughout the episode and throughout the mystery, but then the ending and what the characters do with that information is completely up to them. So in this mystery sheet, like I said, there are leads, challenges, and clues. There is an amount of clues that you create for your characters as the director. And depending on how many they get, their ending will be successful or not. Mm-hmm. But like for example, in true Poirot fashion, the director and everyone doesn't really know what the ending is going to be like, and the players then come up with an ending with the clues that you've given them. I hope I've explained this well. I feel like I've been on a roller coaster in what I've been saying.
No,
I don't remember what the question was.
No, you did. And I'll tell you, the audience is going to be familiar with this idea because I've had Jason Cordova on the show a few times. And Jason's mystery system, both in Brindlewood Bay and in public access and in the between, has a similar type idea, just thematically, where the solution isn't canon, right? So it's not the GM is holding the solution and nobody can see it and you have to find it. It is the table figures out the solution based on the fiction and what makes sense. Was there, Fleur, any familiarity with Brindlewood Bay and kind of that idea, or?
Brindlewood Bay definitely came up as inspiration when we were coming up with our version of this mystery sheet, because we found that the idea that this mystery comes up together with the GM and all the players is very much in theme with the idea of collaboration that is at the heart of Flabbergasted.
Yeah.
And also that it's easier kind of like for the GM to just pick up and play, because you don't have to have a mystery that is, you've planned every single aspect of it and everything has to tie in really well. And if they miss something or interpreted something incorrectly, the ending doesn't make sense anymore. And that kind of goes against the spirit of the spontaneity that we wanted in Flabbergasted. Yeah. So that's why we liked this more open-ended nature. You might have an idea of what would be cool set pieces and cool clues, and you probably would have an idea of where you want the mystery to go, right? Obviously, but you're gonna leave it up to the player so they can come up with a satisfying answer that they feel they have actually achieved, right? I think that's the big thing, because you actually need them to like work their mind and come up with a way to string all of these clues together, as opposed to, I've played like mysteries in other, games where we've collected the clues, and they were like, okay, that's it. And then we just don't really know how they link together. And then the GM narrates it and we're like, okay. Sure.
Yeah. And it's actually so satisfying as a GM when you're hosting a game like this. And in our playtest, every time I have no idea what the ending is going to be. I don't know what they're going to come up with. And there's always an ending, like I said, very Poirot style. Like, oh, but first we found this, but then we found this. And I think that...
in my experience from our playtest with this is that the people at the end, when they've collected all of the clues, then they're really passionate about their solution, because they're like, I figured it out. I know how they link together. And I just think it's a lot more satisfying.
And that's why the mystery sheet works with Flabbergasted, right? It's all about improv. It's all about the players coming up with the story. And like I touched upon earlier, we have that thing where we have what's called a clue tracker on our mystery sheet. So when they come up with clues, when they find clues, you tick it off on your mystery sheets, and at the end, depending on how many clues they found, they roll dice to see how successful their ending is. Because in true Flabbergasted fashion, nothing goes right all the time. And even if they come up with their ending, it will be the ending. That is the ending. But if they don't roll successes, that will be the ending, but maybe the culprit got away with it,
or maybe
they bribed the sheriff, or
maybe you got the right person but for the wrong reasons.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, or something goes wrong. Maybe you got the wrong people on. Yeah, maybe you got the wrong people on your scent now, and like angered some people.
Yeah, something like that. Just more comedy.
So I've got to tell you, when I first came across Jason's game, which is the first time I've had this cast, and real quick, I can't tell you how happy I am that you guys took this approach, and you're going to find out why here in a second. So when I found this idea of a non-canon answer, that the table comes up with the answer, I bounced off it hard. Like, I was just like, what the heck are we doing now? Like, nothing really matters anymore. There's no truths and so on and so forth. And I avoided those games as a result. Then finally, I was just like, you know what? Forget it. I interviewed Jason. He's super convincing, right? And now that I've run games where there's a non-canon answer and that we find the answer together, I have a hard time going back now to like a Call of Cthulhu where the mystery is canon and you have to do it. And the analogy I try to tell people is, and again, I'm not saying that the other way is bad. I'm just saying I prefer it this way, right? But the other way feels like a, and I don't know if you guys have this in Malta, but the scratch off lottery tickets, right? If that's what it feels like I'm given this lottery ticket and I have to figure out where to scratch to figure out what's behind there. And there's no other option. And if I don't scratch in the right places, I'm not going to get there and end up in that scenario. Like you mentioned, Fleur, where like the GM at the end goes, well, here's what the answer was. And it doesn't have that level of satisfaction. It also makes it very difficult to put clues behind roles, because if the answer is canon and there are clues behind a role, if they don't succeed, they're not going to get to the one true answer. But now you guys have the ability to put clues behind roles. They fail and don't get the stupid clue, but that's going to be okay. That just might adjust what the final answer is, which is absolutely fantastic. The other thing that your approach does, having played it, I can't wait to play it, Flabbergasted, is that it really emulates the genre, the mystery genre, right? Because when we're reading a mystery, when we're watching a mystery, whether it be on TV or movie, we don't know the answer. And we watch our hero or heroes piece things together and come up with the answer, which is what we are doing in this scenario. And whether the answer was written down beforehand or not doesn't matter. And it doesn't impact that at all. So out of curiosity, as you were play testing this, I would imagine there were players that were not familiar with this, that this was their first time encountering that. Did you have situations where players didn't believe you at first, that they didn't think this was going to work?
I don't think there was skepticism that it wouldn't work, but there was this like instinct that at the end they're like, okay, we gave our solution. What was the real solution? Like they we're so curious, like, did we do it well? And I mean, it's a difficult question to answer because, I mean, yes, you did. It may, because when we did our playtest, we often found that there were multiple interpretations that could make sense, right? And I guess it's part of the appeal to someone who likes mysteries. Is like, you want to know the real answer. But then, it's about getting used to it, really. That the whole point is to tell a satisfying story. It's not necessarily, maybe that's the big difference between having everything plotted out as a mystery where you find the true answer. But whereas in our case, it's about just having fun, being the hero in your own mystery story, and.
But here's the thing that people need to understand, because I still have people that say that, I don't want to try these games because they bounce off it the same way I do. So I honestly understand where they're coming from. And what I try to explain to them is when it's over, there's no difference. There's no difference than if the answer was written down 4 hours ago or the answer is written down at the end. It doesn't change anything other than it's such more satisfying, and it avoids the trips. So part of the reason running mysteries and role-playing games is hard is because of the canon answer. I mean, how many times have I read or heard people talk about, and I'm not picking on Call of Cthulhu, it's true in Trail of Cthulhu, it's true in Knights Black Agents, anything where there's a mystery involved, where they say, my players aren't figuring it out. They're not finding the clues. They're not interpreting the clues correctly. I need GM help. There's Reddits that are just devoted to helping GMs with this. All of that goes away. And you end up with a far more satisfying. So, Fleur, we have the mystery sheet when it first comes over from the monster game. What changed when it became into Flabbergasted? So between where it started and where it is now in its final form, can either of you give me an idea of what you had to change or what you added or removed in order to make it fit?
So when we first had the mystery sheet for the monster game, firstly, it was still that original idea that the mystery has to be completely pre-structured with an ending, right? And that mystery sheet was more about keeping your
a tracker.
Yeah, a tracker. That's it, really. Yeah, just elements of the mystery on it, and so it was very kind of a bit more bare bones, and I think that's one of the reasons we found it didn't work as a tool to plan out a whole campaign, and it was just getting really bloated. You spend way too much time pre-planning things, and so then we brought it to Flabbergasted, and we started experimenting with the idea of players coming up with their own solutions. Then the mystery sheet started taking shape that instead of it just being where you're going to write down your ideas or document them, it's going to help the GM structure their mystery and come up with the steps for it. So as Jesse said already, we basically broke it down into 3 things, like your lead, your challenges, and your clues. And so that way we're helping the game master break it down into easy elements, and they can really come up with good ideas for these challenges, they can be more physical or social challenges. And it's basically going to guide you step by step to writing a mystery. So it's more of a guide and a tool than just a paper you write to.
So Chelsea, that must have been a big moment when you threw out the idea of this just being a tracker of a single truth mystery with a solution and opening things up. Do you remember when that happened? And was it a situation where you're like, this still isn't working, we need to come up with another thing? Or did you when did you make that choice, right? When did you throw out the idea and come up to this open-ended idea? Do you remember that?
Well, we knew it wasn't working for this other game, and I scrapped that and put it on hold for a while. We just in general in the last few years we've become less attached to our games and the game design process, and I have no problem with just saying no, this isn't working, and instead of trying to fix it, because I feel like trying to fix a game sometimes ruins it, it's best to toss it, start from scratch, see how we can keep the same setting or the things that we love and come up with a new solution. So we scrapped it, but I still had it, obviously in my draft somewhere. And when we came up with the idea for Mystified, I went back to revisit. And while it was a bit too complex for what Flabbergasted is, we streamlined it a lot. We came up with this idea of having a open-ended answer, and the players come up with it, because that's really in thing with Flabbergasted, which is we just want to give tools to the GM for them to create a story, but then let the players do what they want. Like this, that's the heart of roleplay, right? Let players create the story with you. We streamlined it, and to be honest, in our first playtest, it worked very, very well. Very few. We streamlined it a bit more since then. That's the only thing that we've done. Removed a couple of elements because I think it was still a bit too complex for Flabbergasted. But it hasn't changed dramatically. I think as opposed to creating a brand new tabletop role-playing game, an expansion is a lot simpler playtesting wise. And even before we went into the playtesting phase, because we already had a game, you can get a pretty good sense of whether this is going to work or not, because we weren't creating a game from scratch. We were just adding something. So I think that's why the first playtest did pretty well. And yeah, we didn't change anything too drastically since then.
So Fleur, I imagine there was something that was added or something removed late in playtesting that really made everything come together. What was it for Mystified? So is there something that was in early playtests of Mystified that you ended up throwing out and you're so happy that you did? Or was there something in the early playtests of Mystified where you're like, something's missing, then you tried something and it was like, that's what was missing? Can you give me an idea of what happened in that journey, if there was something that was added or removed?
I don't think there was anything that was very dramatically added or removed. The big dramatic change was making it from a structured mystery to an open-ended mystery. That was the big turning point for it. Other things that we removed were things like we had like a complication meter. So like a certain amount of clues, complications happen, but we did end up removing that because I think it's something that will come out naturally during gameplay anyways. Yeah. And since we're not using this for very long campaigns, but rather maybe like, 2-3 sessions, I don't think it needed it. I think it was just going to bloat it. So that was like something that we removed. I think
the mystery sheet was when we brought it to Flabbergasted and Mystified and started testing it, was in a really good place. The other main thing that we've added in this game are 3 new archetypes, and those required quite a bit of playtesting. Again, we've already created archetypes, so most of the sheet was there. But we have one of our mechanics with our characters are the scene cues, and those require you actually trying them out. And we've removed some, added new ones, especially since these 3 new archetypes are very different from the last 3, especially the occultist. And we found with writing these scene cues, the first time we wrote the scene cues in our first playtest, we found that some of them were very specific and weren't going to work in a lot of scenarios outside of just an occult mystery. And we needed to work for all of Flabbergasted because we want you to be able to get the occultist and fit it into your regular Flabbergasted campaign as well. So that's the main thing that changed, scene cues and things like that.
That answers a question I was going to ask, which is, can I take these 3 new archetypes and not do a mystery? Can I play regular Flabbergasted with that? It sounds like that I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
And is that the same with the new locations? Those can be used in any game of Flabbergasted or only mystery?
No, they can be used for any game for any game that you want. There are like going to be set pieces that are more geared for mysteries, but they are still essentially like sandbox locations.
So the other thing that we have is quote unquote 3 full-length campaigns. And I'm a little skeptical of that wording because part of what I love about Flabbergasted is it's not like the Tomb of Annihilation thick book and first your players go here, then they go there, then they go here, then they go there. That's not how it's structured in Flabbergasted. And I imagine that's not how it's structured here. So can one of you give me an idea of what are these quote unquote campaigns and how do you structure them? How do you deliver them to the GM so that they can bring it to the
So essentially they are, so it's in each location, there is going to be like in this campaign and like an overarching story that's going to lead you around these new locations. But really what it is just kind of like a pre-written mystery sheet, right? With the leads, the clues and the challenges, but just expanded upon so that it includes like more set pieces about the environments you're going to be going to, characters and NPCs you're going to meet, rather than just having the sheet and
it's not going to be as detailed as you're picturing in other types of games, right? But one thing that people have asked for after Flabbergasted was that they would like, apart from just a sandbox location, a sandbox setting, is yes, we're going to have a mystery sheet like Fleur said, but also a bit more direction for directors who don't want to come up with a full campaign. Like, here's episode 1, and this is what you can do. Not super detailed, like you should go here, but this is what can happen in this episode, etc. And fill a whole campaign.
With these mysteries as well, is that the order of which you do things is open-ended as well.
Nice. Yeah, so it can go in any direction. All right, so we are cranking this thing out, right? We're working on this. We've brought in this mystery sheet thing that's going through play testing. Like, the two of you were like, you know what? I think we're close. When do you shift gears? So when do you know this is going to be the next book? This is going to be crowdfunded. Like, how do you make that decision? And how does it not become the monster game and be put out on the shelf for a while to be revisited potentially later? At what moment did the two of you know this is going to be the next thing we do?
I think we technically like answered this already earlier, which is that kind of when we realized that Flabbergasted was getting lots of some attention and nominations, it's just like, it doesn't matter what our idea is, it should just be a Flabbergasted expansion.
No, and I get that, right? But I want to know, because Mystified could have gone through what we've talked about, and you guys go, this isn't it.
Yeah.
This isn't we might do this later. So I'm trying to get like, you knew you were going to put out an expansion, right? But when did Mystified win? When did it beat out your other ideas?
I think it was more like Mystified became a medley of our ideas. Because in fact, like there's, we say there's 3 distinct flavors of mystery that take place in this, because we all had bits of things that we really liked. I always had it in mind that, I always thought Explorer should be an archetype because, it's such a classic, like, of that pulpy era, 1920s, 30s. So that should be there. I personally had an interest in like this, kind of like, I, for example, really like Lovecraftian and Cthulhu, like the Cthulhu role-playing games as well. And I wanted something like that, or a bit like, who was it as well? Like Nikola Tesla kind of mad scientist kind of feel. I wanted a bit more of that Gothic city.
We had a few other settings that didn't make it. In the beginning, we had 4. Do you remember, Fleur? We had 4 settings, and only 3 made it at the end.
So, for example, one of the other settings we really liked was we were quite into like the dark academia genre.
That was the 4th one. Mm.
Yes,
but it didn't feel distinct enough.
Yeah, so she liked dark academia. I liked mad scientist. And somehow the two of them together became occultist. We're like, this is a mix of both, because you can still have that like old university with secret societies and the occult setting, but I can still add in my crazy scientist in this like town that's covered in the layer of fog at all times of the day. And then when it came to what we call like the classic whodunit / cozy mysteries. Mm-hmm. That's just something that we're both like a really, really big fan of. Especially a big inspiration was the book series called the Thursday Murder Club series, which is about a group of octogenarians in a retirement home solving murders together.
Amazing!
It's a really good book series. Really funny.
And actually that book series was like very. It was reassurance that there is a place for murder and mysteries alongside comedy.
Yes.
Yeah, because, it's a bestseller series. Yeah.
Because some people have asked us, how does a occultist Lovecraftian-esque setting make sense for Flabbergasted. But
yeah, to answer your question of when
yes.
have we realized that we were going to crowdfund, it's okay. We that's what we do for the entire interview.
That's why I love having you on.
Just let us talk. Ask us one question and we'll keep going.
Exactly.
For an hour.
Answer one question, we'll answer 5 of them.
Exactly. And then we'll go back to the question I asked.
Oh gosh, what was the question?
When did you know?
When did we know we were going to actually crowdfund? So we knew that our next product was going to be an expansion. When we had this idea of a mystery sheet, we also, before that, we had a few different settings that we thought we were going to do, and that they were requested by players, or there were some players who also kind of homebrewed Flabbergasted and created, for example, an Agatha Christie murder on a train kind of mystery. So we knew what was out there and what people wanted, and with this mystery idea, we could get most of them in. And so we knew this was going to be it, and this was going to be what we were going to crowdfund. And as soon as we saw that it worked in playtesting and it was really fun, everyone liked the fact that they came up with their own ending. Everyone got it.
I realized that most of the changes we were doing were just those like more superficial, like rewording certain things. Like the game wasn't 100% finished by the time we decided let's go crowdfunding it. But I think that's the case for pretty much any kind of game that's going into publishing.
But it was close.
But it was close. We're like, there is 80% there. The core works. The parts that work, we can confidently tell people about in our descriptions and crowdfunding page. And so we just get started working on it.
Yeah. And I think it was about maybe this December-ish when we said, for sure, we're going to crowdfund ideally as soon, first quarter of the year. And when with all of our games or crowdfunding campaigns, as soon as we decide we're going to crowdfund, the first thing we do is we just send the brief for the cover and the art, because that takes a while. So once we send those out, we're in. We're in. We're definitely going to do this because we're committed.
We work now on a 3-month schedule from the time we're like, okay, we're going to crowdfund. 3 months later, it's going to be ready to launch.
So no spoilers. I'm not asking spoilers, but you have to you're already starting to think about what's next. And where are you in that stage now? Do you have ideas that you're kind of floating around, or have you started to hone in on what might be next for Flabbergasted? And again, don't tell me anything. I just want to get a sense of where we are, if that makes sense.
I don't think we're thinking that far ahead. So, okay, when it comes to just the Flabbergasted universe, Mystified is pretty much just the big main thing that we have planned. What we do have, we want to kind of bring in over this next year as well, are small like PDF supplements as well for Flabbergasted, because I think we hadn't capitalized on that so far. That we do have these ideas for small things, and we should be working on them. But there's
but otherwise we're not planning so far another big expansion or anything like that. With this campaign, I mean, it's doing really well, so we do know that there is a demand for more content within the Flabbergasted world. But also with this campaign, we, apart from making Mystified, we were able to reprint Flabbergasted, and so we're going to have hopefully even more copies that we can keep Flabbergasted alive and keep selling. So for now, I think we're good, and we don't have anything else planned apart from smaller things. But we'll see. Maybe if it keeps growing. I would love to.
It's incredible. I just went to BackerKit while we were talking. I mean, you've got 445 people that have already backed this, that's pretty incredible for an expansion.
Yeah, it's somehow doing better than Flabbergasted.
It's really exciting. Really, really exciting.
Oh, sorry. I did actually want to. So just to hint again at what we have planned with Flabbergasted. We like our Flabbergasted IP. And we may move it into other types of games as well.
Yeah, we have too many ideas.
Well, what's really funny to me about you saying that, and this has surprised me when I got the book, is like we talked about in our first conversation about Flabbergasted, the touchstones are so concrete for Flabbergasted. I knew before I got the book exactly what the game was because it was very directly inspired, right? You made it very clear this is what the game is. What surprised me when I got it is it's still its own thing, if that makes sense. Like when you guys say the Flabbergasted universe and the IP, I don't think I would have believed you before I got the book that it really can stand on its own, but I can tell you it does. And that excites me because it really is, though very much inspired by a lot of very, very strong touchstones. Somehow the two of you made this thing its own thing, and it feels like its own thing, which is pretty incredible, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's really inspiring to hear. I mean,
yeah. Now maybe we should think of other products. After I said that, but I've always thought I think the name is amazing, and I would love that name. I would love that name on other things. I think it's so catchy. Yeah, no, thank you. I think we did create a unique world that is kind of a parody of a lot of other things as well. Don't get me wrong; it's not like 100% original on its own, but it's its own thing. Like I think the city we made in Flabbergasted, I'm glad people like that city because it was so much fun to write because every single word, every single like landmark and district is a parody in of itself. Like the word itself, like peccadillo means a small mistake. It's a word that means that, which is hilarious. And it would be lovely to bring it to other kinds of games or products.
And that's why I was so surprised, right? Is because it is derivative, because it is parody. For it also to still become its own thing is pretty cool. What were you going to say, Fleur?
My dad, for the longest time, he's like, "Oh, why don't you approach this so they make a film of this?"
Okay, I'm like, calm down.
Pump the brakes, Dad.
he's like, take the story, and I'm like, but there isn't a story. It's a role.
So this leads to my last question, and we hinted at it at the very beginning, which is the two of you having to talk to the rest of the family. The two sisters come and say, "We're quitting our jobs and we're going to do this full time." And now you've done it. Now you are full-time game designers, right? How's the family doing? Were they skeptical at first and now you proved it, or were they behind you the whole time? And I'm talking extended family, partners, just the whole friends, the whole universe. Where were they when you stupidly said you were going to do this full time, and where are they now?
I mean, there was obviously some judgment, but we're very lucky. Everyone has been very supportive, even from the beginning. They might have passed some comments. Like my dad will for a while, I think for like 6 months after I quit, he would always introduce me as, "Oh, here's my daughter. She's an architect," and she would never mention I'm a game designer. Like, I'm not working as an architect right now. You can say, but then he would say, and Fleur, she's a game designer.
Oh, geez.
So there was some awkwardness in the beginning, but everyone has turned around and really supports us both.
So, because in my case, since I always worked with like illustration and design, it is a natural progression of and I used to work in board games and book publishing before this as well. So for me, this was the natural progression. It wasn't.
For me, it was a huge change.
Yeah.
And there some context about Malta, but like architecture is held as a really high position in Malta, but like more so than like in other places as well. Like there, it's considered.
It's got a professional prestige,
Yes,
and not only just in Malta, but I could understand that, and that makes a ton of sense to me. Why? And this this shows the difference between the two of you. It's not a distinction necessarily, but now that makes sense to me, that where somebody be like, out of love, I can see someone going, what the hell are you thinking about?
Yeah.
Right? Out of sheer love.
But luckily, no one around me really said that. But they made it kind of known by not being able to say that I'm not an architect anymore, right? They really held on to that. It's like, no, you're still an architect. You could still go back. You could these kind of comments I heard for quite a while, but they all. In time, everyone gets it. Everyone gets that me and Fleur really work well together, and we have qualities that the other person doesn't. That when we work together, I think we're a good duo. And yeah, everyone's on board
even now,
and very proud.
My dad is now like embarrassingly proud of us. Like to the point
that's
where
awesome.
every time we basically share an office with my dad. We have like we're in the same floor, but we're in like two separate offices. And every time a client comes into his. He's like, God. Oh, these are my daughters. This is what the book they did. They won the awards. They won, or whatever. They're like, they nominated for the Oscars of the role playing world.
That's got to be really cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit embarrassing because, like, oh.
I'm always so cringeworthy because I'm like, they don't know what this is. You're random. Like, you're an accountant. This random client does not understand what this is.
You know what every one of those clients understands is a father's pride.
Yes,
that's what every one of those clients understands.
We're very lucky.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Super lucky to still be doing this.
Yeah.
Yes.
And still surviving.
I'm the worst because I said that was the last question, and now I've got another one. One of the things that fascinated me about the two of you when we first came in contact with each other, when we first talked, is I'm always fascinated by partners in design, because it's very different than someone who's just them making their own game with help. You two are distinctly partners. On top of that, you're siblings, which comes with its own benefits and complications. But now this partnership is far more mature than it was when we talked last time. And I want to get a sense, has there been any changes in how the two of you work together, or are you two the same partners now that you were when we talked at the beginning of Flabbergasted?
I think, no, we have definitely changed. Not that, but part of it is also a change, like individually though, as well. It makes us better partners. So I can speak for myself personally, but I used to be a lot harder on myself because since we're siblings, there's no one to really tell you like, oh, you have to work today, or you're going to, we're so close together that, I'm like, oh, I don't feel like doing that much today. And in the beginning, I used to be really hard on myself. Like it was so ingrained in me that you need to work 9 to 5, 5 days a week. But over time, I've accepted that this is the benefit of what we're doing, right? Because we can make our own hours. I don't have to. It's like, we've liberated ourselves from the 9 to 5.
Yep.
I mean, don't get me wrong, we still work a lot of days, but there's sometimes where like it's okay. Like sometimes we have a weekend where we do a lot of interviews or like conventions, and we're like, that's fine. Monday we take it off because we did work. And I think that's made me someone better to work with because I'm less like neurotic and anxious about it.
It's a really good point, Fleur, because there's so many challenges to doing this on your own. You don't have the reliability, the stability. There's a lot of unknowns and stresses that come from the decision the two of you made. You have to also embrace the good sides of it. You can't just take the added extra pressures. You need to indulge in the fact that you now only speak to yourselves and you only work for yourselves, and there has to be benefits for that. How about for you, Chelsea? What do you think has changed?
I think since last time we spoke, since the beginning when we were doing this full time, I would say things have improved. Overall, we are very close sisters. We get along really, really well. Like I can't complain. But in the beginning, and I will. But in the beginning, I would say in the beginning we argued more frequently. Like right now, we're in a very, very good place for the past year. I feel like in the beginning, we kind of fell into certain roles. And I will say that a part of it is I should have been more vocal and stood up and said, I would like to do more of the artistic side as well, because I am an artistic person. But I think because I came from, I am the more, what is the word, organized person. I came from an academic kind of, I'm more of an academic person, sort of. So I fell into, I will say, the more boring parts of running a business. Which in the beginning I was like, that's fine, that's who I am. And Fleur did a lot of the artistic side, and we would argue a lot, and I didn't realize that it's partly because I needed to say, hey, I would like to do more of this, and I would like you to do more of what I'm doing, and we can we'll be just, both of us will be happier. Well, I will be happier that way. Because I think Fleur would love to just do the artistic side and nothing else.
Well, so here's a question. Who figured that out first, Fleur? You or Chelsea? Did you know that Fleur had more artistic leanings to offer, and we needed to pull her out of her shell and make her feel more comfortable contributing that way? Or was it Chelsea going, I'm going to, like, am I making sense? Like, were you surprised? Let me rephrase it. Fleur, were you surprised when Chelsea said she wanted to participate more in the creative side?
No, for two kind of big reasons. One is because Chelsea is actually like a creative person. Like architecture itself is a creative field.
Yeah.
She's always been, she's always had a good eye for design. So, I knew it wasn't a shock that she wanted to do more of that. But the second thing might be a bit personal, and it was a little bit sad, but my dad, again, would keep passing the same comment to Chell. Where he's
Dad,
like,
don't listen to this. Please stop listening.
He would tell me, he's like, wow, Fleur, like, the design is so good, these illustrations, and he'd be like, Chell, what did you do in the book?
Oh.
And I really, and sometimes I would really feel for her, and she would get it a few times, even from other people. Like, for me, they know exactly what I'm doing in the book, right? Because what I contributed to these games, for the most part, is the visual stuff.
Right.
On Flabbergasted, Chelsea did a lot more of the, like, making sure it's proofread and edited. And she's a really, really damn good job on that. And keeping us in check and marketing. And there are all these hidden things that people don't really appreciate.
And, writing.
Writing, yes. We obviously did both game design and writing. Yep. But I could tell that she, we're very in tune as sisters of like 30 years.
Yeah.
I could tell that it was maybe an insecurity or a sore spot for her that she couldn't contribute to the visuals of it.
Fleur knew this, but I think at some point then I asked, and I said, I would like to do more of the artistic side, of the visual side, right? Because obviously creating a game and writing is artistic in itself, but the visual side, I would like to do more and do less of the behind the scenes, and you do some of the behind the scenes as well. Partly, like Fleur said, it was an insecurity, but also I will enjoy my workday more if I can do a balance of both. Yeah. So that's the main change for me in the past 2 years. And I think because I am happier as well, we're getting along really well. We don't argue. In the beginning, I think there was some friction.
Yeah. Other parts as well that improved as well was that you had touched upon it already, Chell, that we're less precious about our ideas now as well, because before, when we suggest an idea and the other one is like, I'm not feeling it, and shuts it down, you can take it personal offense. Now we're a lot more like, oh, okay, don't like it, scrap, do something new. We're matured in that way as well.
Big deal. I can imagine, Chelsea, you going like, yes, you can see the book, right? And you can easily see what Fleur has done. I'm going to take you to the Kickstarter page and show you how many people backed this thing and how much money we made on it. That's what I did, right? Because that wouldn't have happened without behind the scenes. All right. Again, I lied to you. I've got one more question. This one is for you, Fleur. How have you found any joy in picking up some of the behind the scenes work? Is there anything about that work that you didn't anticipate that you would like, or do you hate all of it?
No, honestly, like I think both me and Chelsea can admit, whenever it comes to like VAT and tax, my God.
Oh, we both hate.
There's no joy there.
absolutely detest.
No joy.
With the other parts, it's not that I hate or enjoy. For example, I tend to mostly take care of our collecting backer data and preparing it for fulfillment and organizing it. For me, I don't hate it. I don't love it. But sometimes it's nice to have a break from design to do stuff like this as well.
Mm-hmm.
What I do kind of like is behind the scenes. I do love just interacting with people. Like if it was just customer care and answering, queries and concerns, it's really nice to get to talk to people who supported us and bought our games. It's really lovely. So that's a part it's a thankless job because no one really sees it, but I enjoy doing that. And both me and Tracy do a mix of these.
When we talked last, and I think you'll not take this as an insult. When we talked last, you guys were nobodies in this industry. Nobody knew anything about what the two of you were capable of. That has now changed. You now are part of and established in this community, and you have the product and the success to show for it. How has the design community been? How much have you found yourselves now a part of that, interacting with other designers more, or are you still kind of on an island a little bit doing your own thing? Has that become a new community for the two of you?
I'll be honest. So from what I can tell, the TTRPG community tends to be really big on Twitter, X, whatever. I really
dumpster fire.
Yes, I really, really hate Twitter. So I feel like there's a big significant portion of the community that I have not been able to fully engage with because so much of it is of people who are very online on Twitter. Mm-hmm. I don't have the energy to do that. But we do have a community with some other designers and publishers and people who are creatives in this industry on things like Discord, which I much prefer. It's still rather small. I don't feel necessarily fully ingrained. But then again, we have some super fans of like Flabbergasted, and it's so nice to see them like mention us and talk about our games, and they come to listen to like any live streams that we're doing. But actually, what I will say is that in Malta we are very embarrassingly recognized.
Malta is so tiny.
Weren't you Jessie was getting her eyebrows down when she said, "I saw you on the newspaper."
Yes.
Isn't that something? You guys have.
I mean, I'm not gonna say we get recognized.
No.
I don't feel like we are fully in the community internationally, but in Malta, because the community is so small, it is so lovely because everyone knows each other, including the people who play Flabbergasted. We know, I think, all of them in Malta probably, because whenever there's an event, everybody comes, and we know other designers. There aren't that many, but I don't know anyone who publishes tabletop role-playing games in Malta, but we have met people who make board games, for example, and we're in that same community, and it's amazing.
Or digital games, just big fans of games in general. And whenever we go to like comic conventions in Malta, that's where we do get recognized, and they're like, cool. And they call us the Sciortino sisters every time, and it's really sweet.
That's funny because that's what I called you guys when I was talking to my wife last night. I said, I'm super excited. I'm having Fleur and Chelsea come back, and my wife, who doesn't know anything about any of this, like she thinks I'm a weirdo. She's like, "Are those the sisters that you talked to that you enjoyed so much?" I said, "Yes, that's exactly who it is." So apparently, I sang your praises then.
Leaning into that, us being sisters does tend to be a bit of like a cute marketing tactic as well. Like people are definitely endeared to it.
I don't know how you can't lean into it. Because it's very unique and it works for you. So I would hope that the two of you would embrace it. That's great.
Oh yeah, now we are.
So Chelsea got married last year, and I'm going to get married this year. But we're keeping Sciortino Sisters as our like professional publishing name. We're not going to let go of that.
Good. So guys, we're going to take one more break. When we get back from this break, I've got some catching up to do. I need to find out. We had a great Groovin' On segment last time we talked. You guys gave us so many things to look into. But you guys have been looking into new stuff and watching and reading and doing new stuff. So we're going to talk about that. We'll be right back. This is the part of many podcasts where someone comes on, interrupts the show, and explains that you should consider paying for the content that you're listening to right now for free. That pitchman explains by giving $1 or more a month, you not only support the show, but you allow the show to grow and improve. Here on the third floor, we refuse to interrupt your episode of Tabletop Talk with such time-wasting pleas. We pledge never to run a spot asking you to go to patreon.com and give $1 or more a month, because supporting content creators keeps the content coming, even if there is a link in the show's description. And there is. We don't ask you to click it and become a patron. We don't waste time rambling about the benefits like early access to episodes, getting episodes without ad breaks like this, or even getting a chance to play in one of Craig's RPG sessions. Anyway, enjoy this episode knowing Tabletop Talk, despite being supported by its patrons, won't engage in such blatant appeals for support. We're now at my favorite part of every interview, because I love finding out new things I should be reading, new things I should be watching, new things I should be playing. I'll start with you, Chelsea. What lately have you been reading, playing, watching that you think is just incredible and you can't stop thinking about?
Well, right now, I've been playing a lot. I can't say I've been reading and watching a lot, because I started some big games and they're taking over my life.
Tell me.
I've started a bit late to the party, but Baldur's Gate 3, I finally started it, and that is my life right now.
Why? How did it work for you?
I mean, how could it not? It's Fleur has already played it, and Fleur has told me, you're gonna love it. What are you waiting for? And finally, a few weeks ago, I started, and I mean, it's great. We love Dungeons and Dragons. We love role-playing games.
Mm-hmm.
I love the openness of the game and how my story is way different than from Fleur's, because I play in a very chaotic way, and I have been to prison so many times in Baldur's Gate 3. I have died so many times. I keep trying to kiss everything, including mind flayers, and dying. It's so much fun.
Oh, that's hilarious, because the archetypes, the two of you that we just talked about last segment, I would have figured it would have been Fleur that was in jail trying to kiss everything, and you would have been meticulously trying to beat it. No, this must be the right way to do this.
No,
but it's just the opposite.
Have zero strategy in Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh, that's
I just
amazing.
go in, guns blazing, winging it. Well, not guns blazing, but
I do know what you
fireballs
mean.
blazing. I don't know.
So there's people listening, and there's a person who's interviewing you right now that's never played it. For you, what's the selling point? You mentioned the openness, but it's got to be more than that, because I hear how passionate you are about the game just talking about it. What do you think is the differentiator that makes Baldur's Gate different than all of the other fantasy RPG games out there? What makes it distinct for you?
I mean, obviously there is a bit of nostalgia, right, with the setting. And I am someone who's very drawn to settings and themes with games. And I would say typically this is not like a big fantasy RPG is not the kind of game I've been playing recently for the last few years. So what's unique about this and why I was drawn to it, like I said, is the openness, but in the sense you can literally do, well, maybe not literally, but you can do whatever you want. Like I said, I went to prison many times. There are many ways to break out of prison, in this game. And you think, okay, you can pick a lock. No, I have found other ways, because that's the kind of open game it is. And it's really funny and really fun.
I can talk in on this because I played Baldur's. I actually finished it, and it's such a well-crafted story as well. And this is something that in role-playing games, like, for example, both me and Chelsea are huge Dragon Age fans. Dragon Age is actually what got us into role-playing games, into TTRPGs. But for example, in other games, like the side plots and the side quests are very like fetch questy or don't really have much bearance on the narrative. Baldur's Gate, everything is like somehow interconnected. It's so well crafted. There's such a love as well behind this game that you can tell from the developers.
It's really fun.
That they are making a game that they want to play. And I think they just did something really incredible.
Yeah, and obviously the fact that it is based on a tabletop role-playing game and you are rolling dice for your actions, that's unique. The fact that you can reroll and use inspiration dice, the fact that certain actions that you do with your companions will get you inspiration dice because they feel inspired. It's really fun. It's cool to see it kind of being inspired by a tabletop role-playing game. Yeah, I love it, and you should play it if you have it. That's the ending of
Fleur, how about for you? Other than Baldur's Gate, obviously, what else has really have you been watching, reading, or playing that has occupied your brain?
I'm in my reading era.
Okay.
I've been for like the past. I've always been an avid reader, but I fell off and then like didn't read a book for like 5 years straight. Now, past 2-3 years, I've been really like diving into reading. And I'm currently in my Brandon Sanderson era of.
So I have not read a single book of his, but there's nobody on this planet that says Sanderson's okay. Like you either love Sanderson or you hate Sanderson. Nobody's ever lukewarm about him. You obviously are in the camp that you're really enjoying him. So can you give me an idea as somebody who's never read him, why? Why are you, along with a whole army of other people, love what he is doing so much? Well,
okay, first, just a boring answer. I really think he's such a talented writer. The way he writes is actually, what's surprising is that he managed to make mundane things sound really interesting to me. So I'm currently reading his longest novel called The Way of the Kings. It's okay. There's a lot about Sanderson that I like. He has like this. He's managed to tie in all of his books that he has into the same universe called like the Cosmere series, and it's a bit of like that Marvel, the thing that Marvel did with their MCU, where you see references to other things and it makes you want to like learn more about them and read more. And I'm getting really like sucked into his whole series of books. Other than that, I mean, he writes fantasy, which I'm just really, really into. He takes a very methodical and detailed approach to his like the way magic works in his worlds. You can tell when he builds a world, he really thinks about every aspect of it. They're not surface level. Like, oh, I'm just going to call it magic with a CK at the end to sound different than anyone else. There's like etymology behind it, like the words that he uses, and it makes sense of the world. I don't want to go into too much about it, but like the last thing that I really liked about his writing style. So it's a bit pet peeve of mine in fantasy where you start reading a book and on the first page, like there's half the words, you don't know what they mean. He's using so many fantasy words and names that sound nothing like our human names. He has that, like he uses a lot of his own language in his worlds, but he manages to really introduce them slowly, and I'm getting used to it. I think he's a remarkable author. Does he write so fast?
Well, that's the other thing, right? And
it's impressive.
And he's the other thing that impresses me about him, again, having never read him, is he's doing it himself. And like his approach to all of this, I don't care whether you like him as a writer or not, you have to respect his success. Because I don't think there's anybody else that has done it the way he's done it as well as he's done it. And it's very, very impressive. Normally I can't talk this long about him with somebody who loves them because they become super annoying. But it's a tribute to him, right? That he has such a passionate fan base and such a passionate following. And you didn't get annoying. You touched on things that I could relate to, which I appreciate. So on a Sunday, there are so many cool things to do, like play Baldur's Gate or read some Sanderson novels. But somehow I tricked the two of you into spending an hour or so with me. And it was great catching up.
It was amazing. I love talking to you. It was so much fun. Honestly, I can't wait to write another game so we can come and chat again.
That's why we write games, not just so we get
That's why.
Just to get on Craig's calendar.
Yes.
Exactly.
You guys are so funny.
It's really nice to talk about something we're all passionate about and in a really easygoing manner, you know.
I'm glad. That makes me very, very happy. Those of you listening, guess what? This is the end. You made it. And I appreciate you doing it.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Subscribe to Tabletop Talk and share it with your friends. Check out our content on YouTube and Twitch. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook and stay updated on everything coming from Third Floor. All the links are in the show notes. Take care, Floorheads.
Oh, wow. That was a good segment. You guys were very generous. And thanks for we got a little personal there. And I appreciate you guys doing that because that's great content.
I really don't mind going into personal.
That's fine. Our family won't listen.
It was phenomenal. It was a great segment.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll bring us back.
That was really fun. I meant it. It was really, really fun. Love talking to you.
I'll be honest, before the interview started, because both me and Chelsea were I have a headache today. I was feeling a bit sickly. I honestly feel so much better after the interview.
Oh, God. You stop it. You're making me feel really good about myself. I appreciate that. That's not easy to do. Oh, hey. Are you still here? Wow. Well, the episode is over, but if you're bored, why not go to patreon.com and support the show for as little as $1 a month? Yeah, you can just scroll down and get the link. It's Patreon that makes this and all of our other content possible. Don't you want to join the other floorheads on the Patreon Discord? Anyway, thanks for sticking around. Take care. Bye.